This kind of just talks through starting here to sort of where I am now. When I applied for the course, there was no other course like it, and that's why I wanted to go for it. I'm from Plymouth as well, so that's why I came here. But there was loads of stuff on the course that I had never really known much about. I went to quite like an academic school. The arts weren't really a thing. So there was, all the different modules, and that kind of stood out to me and why I went to apply for it. And yeah, we did obviously loads of different, I don't know how many trips you guys have done recently with COVID, but we did Premier Vision, Future Lab, Paris Fashion Week, London Fashion Week. So yeah, this course really sort of opened my eyes to the fashion industry as a whole, really. But while, yes, these are pictures from Fashion Week, obviously going to Paris and being able to photograph people like Virgil and Hailey Bieber was kind of nuts. Like, we were just running around with Kirsty and seeing people like this, which never would have happened if I wasn't on FMM. So take advantage of any of the trips that you get to go on. But yeah, basically while I was here, so during the 3 years I did various internships. In the first year I went to a menswear store / marketplace now called a Pumo, and that was my first ever insight into fashion. Was this tiny little office space in Hoxton, and I was like, how is this like a retailer across the world? And I was just doing product photography for them, didn't really know anything about photography, just went, did it. And that came about just by finding it online. I think it was part of one of the modules, get an internship. I kind of thought it was all going to be a bit Devil Wears Prada, but it was pretty chill. Used to get the coach up to London every week, which wasn't as fun, but you did it. And then basically kind of my real sort of step was Flat Spot, skate company based here. Shopped with them for years and just sort of sent them an email. I sent them the wrong CV to begin with, and then sent them another CV, and they sort of were like, oh yeah, come in for a chat. And the first thing he said to me was like, oh, we're not hiring, we don't do internships, why are you here? And I was like, oh God. And I was just like, oh, I like what you do, I'm into fashion, like, let me just come and do some stuff. Did some photography, ended up doing a lookbook that I got to style, did other lookbooks, ended up doing some exclusive Nike content, did a bit of copywriting, bit of buying, used to go and work in the Always in Colour store on a Saturday sometimes, and it was great. 3 months, wasn't paid, and then they were like, oh, you're doing a good job, we'll pay you now. And I was like, great, I can get paid to just be around product that I like, and it worked in well, so I was still studying and working. So then by the time I left, I had like pretty much a year's worth of paid industry experience, which is quite hard sometimes to get. And yeah, so this was one of the campaigns that I got to style while I was at uni, and it was exclusive Nike content for a shoe. Chris Jones, a skater for Nike. So this is, just St. Paul's, obviously in the background. Did not think I'd be working on something like that while I was at uni. And they were just like, oh yeah, it's for the shoe, put whatever outfits together you want. Like, to be given that sort of freedom was kind of nuts. And then post-graduation, I went back to a Pumo for a couple months, moved to sort of London, and then I managed to get an internship at Dazed, and that was kind of a bit of a turning point for sort of my CV. Carries a lot of weight in the name, Dazed, basically. But I was a fashion assistant intern. I was running and collecting samples, returning samples, going on shoots, steaming clothes for hours on end, and I was assisting the assistants who were assisting Robbie Spencer. Massive stylist, if you don't know him, look him up. But one of the things was this cover story that I managed to work on, which was very lucky. But I was just running about all over London, picking up samples, returning samples, sat in the cupboard. You know, it wasn't the most glamorous job. but it paid off and I managed to end up at End for the first time around. So I finished here in May 2018, May? Yeah. Started at End in September 2018, so that's a short period to go and land a job at such a big company, and that's purely because I managed to get the experience while studying, I think. But I got to be a stylist at a store that I'd shopped with before, and they were doing brands that I love. This was mental. I just came from sitting in the printers down at Brettonside, rushing to get my dissertation printed, to then going and working on projects with New Balance for shoes, like loads of exclusive sort of content. I've got loads of pictures here of stuff, so I'll just flick through those. So the sort of day-to-day of a stylist in an e-commerce company is, doing e-commerce styling for the outfits, but also there's a creative side of it as well. Working on sort of, new season drops. Sometimes it'll be brand activations where the brand will give you a budget, or there's SMU content. So SMU stands for special makeup. So End do a lot of collaborations. Stone Island, Nike, John Elliott, Vans, Reebok, Adidas, just to name a few basically. But this sort of stuff was sort of seasonal features. I have a very sort of set style with menswear. It's very streetwear orientated, Japanese brands, and those were the sort of projects that I used to work on quite a lot. This was also an interview with Leo Mandela, obviously Gully Guy Leo. Went to London, had a hotel room, brought as much product down as possible, and then we sort of just, with him, sort of in and around shooting. He was an interesting guy to meet, which was quite funny. And then, I moved to so lockdown happened. A stylist cannot work during a pandemic. You're in the face of models day in and day out and then when social distancing became a thing, we got put on furlough. I was furloughed for months and months and months and months, sitting around the house doing absolutely nothing. And I was like, I just want to work again. So I got sort of sold a dream job for a new brand that sort of never picked up under the Jaded London umbrella. So I went there for 2 months. It wasn't for me. I moved to London. It wasn't ideal. And I was like, I need out of here. So I went to Mountain Warehouse. Never did I think I was going to be working with waterproof trousers and Packer Max. But it was actually sick. We got to go on amazing trips to the lakes, driving around Land Rovers and styling. So although I wasn't in fashion, I was still doing fashion content, but for a more commercial market, which is really beneficial because it's all well and great doing this cool editorial stuff that's really arty and that you need to pay bills with commercial stuff. That's where money is made, and at the end of the day, you're working in an industry that is heavily based around buying product. So being aware of a commercial market is very, very beneficial. And I think that kind of helped me get to where I am now at End. End had been going for like 16 years, but they only just launched womenswear. Womenswear is one of the most saturated markets. For another company to come in selling the same brands as every other high-end retailer does, the competition is nuts. So going from menswear to womenswear has been crazy. You have to consider way more things in terms of styling. I had never styled women's wear apart from when I was here at uni. So somehow I've managed to get myself a job heading up the women's wear styling team at a retailer like End. So during the interview process was really long, had to do tasks, and obviously coming from a menswear background, the first thing they said was, what's going to make us stand out? And I think just doing stuff that other people aren't doing. which is very hard but good. I'll go through some of the sort of, because I think the best thing about women's wear, at End especially, is it's way more, you can be a bit more creative with the styling, both across e-com and creative. The buy is better. You know, the End buy for menswear is like 700 Stone Island jackets, denim jeans. It's going to get put with an Adidas trainer. Like, the Adidads are buying it basically. Whereas women's wear, the buy, it's a brand new, so we can completely write the brand identity. We sort of come up with an idea of who our customer is going to be, and we just sort of making it as we go. And the more and more we style, the more and more we see who our customer is, because we're still in the first season of the women's wear, haven't even been going for a calendar year yet. We're just coming to the back end of autumn winter 21, and we've increased our buy by like nearly 50% of new brands, so that's really exciting. But some of the stuff I've worked on, so I've been there 3.5 months now, and I have worked on Everyday Bag campaign, Vans Mastermind collab, Nike brand activation. We're working on a Clark's collab. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that or not, but there's that. What else have we been doing? Did an Adidas collab, and yeah, just loads of different sort of creative stuff. So End Everyday Bag, they basically brought out a clear bag, a black bag and a brown bag. Had to do a campaign for it. This is probably one of the first campaigns I did that was sort of quite big scale. End have always been scared of doing joint sort of gender stuff in terms of multi-brand editorials. So this is one that they went quite big on. So we had 12 looks, which doesn't sound like a lot, but trying to pull from a brand new sort of buy for a season that they've bought very shallow in 1 or 2 units was quite hard, because you'd see stuff and it'd be sold out. But yeah, pulling together those sort of women's wear looks to cater the varied customer of End was quite tricky in a sense, but really sort of enjoyable. So managed to really put together 4 quite variety of looks, the thing. And then, has anything else gone up? So End shoot majority of content in-house. We have in-house styling teams, photography teams, creative teams, retouchers, you name it, it's done in-house. The only thing that's sort of externally sourced is if it's a big brand campaign and we'll get someone to set build, but everything else is all done in-house. Everything's shot in our studio across. So there's 2 studios that End have, and it's mental that we run all this out of Newcastle. We're not in London. You don't need to be in London to work in fashion. Everyone thinks that, you don't. I've got experience working down here and in Newcastle. London is great, but it's not all in London. Manchester's big as well. Any questions? Yeah.
Obviously on the course, it's like a lot of photography. Mm-hmm. As like going into styling, did you put that in your portfolio, or did you like just create and direct the styling and someone else to shoot it?
So sometimes I would shoot it myself, but in my final year, so I basically for my final major project, I wanted to build a sort of styling portfolio, and I just got in contact with a photographer that I knew here. She wasn't at the college, she was at Falmouth, but she'd graduated, moved back, and then me and her worked together on every single shoot. So that allowed me to fully focus on the styling, because it's all well and good doing the stuff yourself, but there's no way you can manage a shoot trying to do everything. You need a team. Like, you need stylists, photographers, digis, makeup, hair, runners, there's no way you can do everything yourself, which sometimes you think, oh yeah, that would be better because it will look better because I've done this, I've done that. You'll do way better working in a team on a shoot, especially whether that's stills, video, than you will doing it on yourself. So if you can, this college, this course, there's going to be people that are more favoured towards styling and photography, makeup, video, work with them, because that's the only way you can do it. You can do it all yourself, and as much as you probably think you can, you're way better off working in a team. And also, when you build those connections with people, you don't know where they're going to go when they leave here, and you go out and you say you're working, we're like, oh, we need to shoot a campaign for this. We really need to find a videographer. Who do we know? Oh, actually, I went to uni with this person. Give them a ring. You've got them a job, and then later on they'll help you get a job. Like, that's just how it works. And it is very cliche, but it is all about who you know in this industry. I've had friends from here help me out with stuff. Like Penny, I've asked her if she's known like stylists and photographers before, and she sent people my way, and she's done the same to me. And you just do that, but that's purely because we've worked in a team here. So always, if you know what you want to focus on, go for it. If you don't and you still want to try everything, definitely give it a go and put all that in a portfolio. But if you can work in a team, definitely do. Well, it doesn't have to be big teams. It can be really small. Like, I have worked on shoots that is literally me, a photographer and a model. And then I've worked on other shoots that there's 15, 20 people, and sometimes that's not even that big of a crew.
When you were building your styling portfolio in your third year, where did you source your clothing from?
I just bought it all and then returned it. Do not take a tag off. Do not throw away a receipt. Buy it, clean it somehow. Just be really careful with it. Masking tape on shoes. Get a craft knife and just sort of cut around it. Try not to cut the shoe. It does happen. Just keep everything clean. When models, if they're wearing makeup, get like a silk scarf or face covering or whatever, so they don't get makeup along the things. Just keep all the tags on, and literally I used to buy all the stuff, sort of go through the website trying to build the outfit in my head. Always buy more than less, and then just return it and get your money back. That's the only, and I use my own clothes as well. Like, even though I was shooting on women's, I was just using my clothes for bits. Ask friends for their clothes. Like, again, Penny, she used to have some really cool clothes. I'd be like, look, let me take this off you, and she'd do the same from me. So that's kind of how I did it. Or if you work in a store, ask to borrow stuff. If you don't ask, you don't get. That is literally like a really good bit of advice, because if you don't ask, you don't get. But yeah, just buy it and return it. And then if you do damage it or whatever, just resell it, I guess.
Were you building your portfolio with like luxury brands, or were they like more small brands?
Everything I used in my third year was a mixture of streetwear brands. If not, I just bought them from the high street. I couldn't afford anything luxury, so I just bought ASOS, Zara, Topshop, just whatever I could have sort of afford. But just, you have to be really sort of picky with it. But I think I was very lucky in a sense, so I always had kind of a somewhat clear idea of what I wanted the outcome to be. Or like, so I would go through sort of whatever references I am, and like, I'll pull something up, say an outfit for a runway. I'm like, right, I'm now going to sit on the internet for the next 6 hours and try and find as close as possible as I can to this sort of piece. And if you spend enough time on the internet, like I did, very, very sadly, you do find it scrolling through Reddit, being like, oh yeah, has anybody seen this? And you just work out loads of new brands, new designers. And then that's really good, because then all of a sudden you're pulling new inspiration that other people haven't. And it's just finding out that way. Like, it's really bad, but I've spent so much time just sitting on my phone, reading weird little threads about obscure brands, and then just using them as inspiration, and then just buying sort of what I can and trying to replicate it that way. So yeah, it doesn't have to be luxury. Like, high-end fashion isn't the best. Like, smaller brands, something with a bit more about them, like a proper brand ethos, which I'm sure you've heard lots about on this course. But yeah, it doesn't always have to be high end. Like, just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's better. Half the time you're paying for a brand name. I do that. I'll buy stuff purely because it's a certain brand. But like, you can find way more affordable brands that probably made better. Maybe they're sustainable. They use a certain dyeing process to get a certain color on their shirt, but they use, I don't know, a small factory in India that's done by hand and using like an old school technique, as opposed to Off-White, for example. They're printing their t-shirts with thousands other in some stupid factory in like China, but you're paying hundreds and hundreds of pounds for a t-shirt that has been made in the exact same factory, probably as like some mid entry level brand. So yeah, that went on a tangent, but yeah, no, there was no luxury in my portfolio. I think the thing is for me, I was very lucky, and I think I knew what I wanted very early on. Well, not early on, but sort of at a good point in this course, I knew that I wanted to go into styling, so I could focus really hard on that. And I knew what I liked in terms of brands, visual aesthetic, and I managed to sort of really home in on that. I think if I didn't know, I probably wouldn't have had such a clear pathway for myself. But at that, although I had a very clear path, I strayed away from doing stuff outside of that box, and that damaged me in the same sense, because like I did women's wear originally because I wanted to push myself and get away from menswear and streetwear, and so I did women's. I wasn't overly happy with how some of it looked, and I used to think, well, I could have done this so much better if it was menswear, but I was trying to push myself. So it was good having a direction, but it's also good to try other things as well. What sets me apart as a stylist? I think there's a lot of factors as to why I got the job at End. I used to work there before, so I know how the company works, compared to, say, a different candidate who had no idea how the company works. I'm very much the end customer, and therefore styling for a customer, because that's who you're styling for. You're not styling for yourself. You're styling to sell clothes, because if you don't sell the clothes, the company don't make money, you don't have a job. I think what sort of set me out is I am the customer. I know the customer well. I know the brands well, and that sort of gave me the upper hand. But also, I back myself. I'm confident in the work that I do, and I think that really sort of plays a part, and I'm able to, so if someone challenges why I want to do something, it's like, well, I think this is going to work. You don't have to have a massive, I'm like, you need to just trust me. I'm not the best stylist in the world, not even close to it or anything like that. I'm just very fortunate. I worked hard as well. I got lucky in some places, but I worked hard to get to where I am. And so it was a combination of working hard, being a bit obsessed with brands. I think just sitting on my phone for ages has somehow paid off, and being able to pull sort of references and just knowing how I'm going to style, basically. I'll get sent a brief, and it's like straight away I've got ideas of how I think it's going to look, and it just somehow works. Like some of the time you put it together and it doesn't, but other times it does. Like it's never going to be how you want it to. You know, you could put an outfit together in your head and you think, yeah, this looks great. You've tried it on a model to sort of fit it together. The model who you're actually shooting with shows up on the day, completely different body type, and you're just like, this doesn't work. Because the thing is, like, more so than now, models aren't all 5'10", 11, stick thin, you know, short, taller, smaller, bigger. So, like, stuff just fits people differently. Like, you know, I'm gonna wear a small in something, but a guy who could be different size to me is not gonna carry it the same way. Like, loads of things sort of can play a part, I guess.
Do you always have a strict brief? And if you don't, how would you initially approach?
So it kind of depends. If, for example, so I'll use End as my. So if we're shooting just website content, so banners, are all pretty much enough. End has a very strict formula. You know, it's clean, it's fairly simple, nothing too out there, so you know what's going to work. So stuff like this, like all right, cool, Mikey, this week we're shooting Stussy Max Mara 032C. Right, great, I know I've got full creative freedom, I'm gonna do what I want. Or other times we're gonna be sent stuff. So yeah, we'll shoot, this is like loungewear, sneakers, lower banners, and then we'll do more brand specific, but brands will send a brief and they'll be like, look, we want the styling simple. We don't want anything too crazy, too out there, and you have to work around with that. And so like every time we work with a brand, I'll put together a mood board of sort of reference imagery, and then I'll have to basically make a deck with all my outfits, what the products are. So especially if it's a brand like Clark's, they don't do apparel, it's just footwear. They don't like certain brands being worn with their footwear, and it's the same for other brands. They just don't like being put together with same brands, so they might turn around and be like, oh yeah, you're gonna need to find a new pair of trousers because we don't want this pair of trousers in our content. So sometimes the briefs are really strict, sometimes they're not so strict. Luckily so far, I've been quite lucky and they've been fairly sort of open, sort of do anything we want with them. But I think as time goes on, that'll probably change and it'll be a bit more strict. It really sort of just depends on what the usage is gonna be. Especially when it's with brands, it depends how they're using it and where they're sort of putting it out. So they'll wanna be with certain things and not with the others. So yeah, it kind of really depends per project to project. Homepage, banner, social stuff, free reign. Working with a brand, it will be a bit different.
What has been like the biggest challenge in your career so far? Is there anything that's been like really hard to overcome on your journey?
Going into womenswear was very hard. Female models are completely different to menswear models. There's way more things you have to consider. Fabrics sit in a very different way compared to menswear. Most menswear outfits are t-shirts, pants, hoodies, jackets, blouses, skirts, leggings, cycling shorts, all sorts, body type. My kit bag has doubled in size because there's things like nipple covers, disposable underwear, hair products, all sorts of stuff that I never needed even to worry about on menswear basically. So that was hard, and I think when you think something looks really good and someone turns around to you and is like, no, we're not putting this up, that is horrible to overcome. No one wants to get told, no, the stuff doesn't look good when you've worked hard on it. But you sort of, in a cliche way, learn from that. You learn, all right, yeah, that hasn't worked. And there'll be times where you don't agree with someone. You know that your idea is going to be really, really good, and they don't, and you just like, no, right? Having those sort of conversations is difficult because you'll have them in group work. You'll do group work with your peers. Someone will have an idea, you don't like it, and they don't like your idea. That is one of the trickiest things of working in a team, but working in a team is so beneficial. So yeah, transitioning from men's to women's and sort of just really accepting sort of knockbacks really, because that's just part and parcel of any sort of field that you're in, whether it's photography, styling, graphic design, hair, makeup, buying, journalism. It's not always going to go your way.
What's your favourite part of being a stylist then?
When someone turns around and is like, yeah, that's a cool outfit. It doesn't sound like much, but when someone's into something that you've done, you're like, yeah, that's great. I'll get like a message or something. I got a message today actually, being like, oh, did you style this? I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, this looks amazing. That is the best thing of being a stylist, when someone's into the stuff that you're into. And being able to meet people that just love talking about clothes. That is the best thing. Like, I can meet a friend of a friend and they might be wearing a pair of trousers. Oh, where's your trousers from? And then you just talk about that for ages and just be a little bit of a nerd about clothes, basically. That is the best thing. And you get to be around clothes every day. All sorts of clothes, expensive, cheap, Japanese, American designers, like anything. Just be able to see how it's made, whether you think it's worth the price that it is, going through brands like lookbooks, editorials, just doing that. Or like when the buyers will send me what they're buying for the new season, I'm just there like, oh great, I've never heard of this brand before. So yeah, just talking about clothes, being around clothes all the time. And then when someone's just into what you're into, that is the best thing about being a stylist. But also as well, seeing your stuff at the end of the final, like the overall outcome, that's really cool because you've been there from start to finish, from the sort of idea and then seeing it grow and like, all right, yeah, so this is the location, so you're trying to imagine how it's going to look, this is the model package, oh, I really want to style her because I think she's going to look really good for what I'm doing, but she's not available that day, and then you see it all at the end, you're like, oh yeah, this looks really good. But there is times where you're like, actually no, this, because you're not working for yourself, there are times where you've got to do stuff that you don't like. Like I've done some things and I'm just like, this project sucks. Like it's not always fun. It's like, great, I've got to do Palm Angels tracksuits, 6 looks, every single one's the same except they've got a different colour on them or a different pattern. And you're just like, I don't want to put my name to this, but you do, because you have to. So you're not going to do everything you always like. Let's see if I can find the Palm Angels. But yeah, seeing clothes all day, every day, and people being into your stuff. You don't need mad crazy equipment, big budgets to do shoots. Half of this stuff that we do at End is all shot in-house in a studio with a paper backdrop. There's no reason why you guys can't do it. I wish I had someone tell me that. Kirsty will tell you it, but you won't believe her. I didn't believe her, and she's like, oh, you can do whatever, just go into the streets and like shoot with your friends, just people that look cool and that. And you hear it and you're like, yeah, all right, cool, yeah. It is that easy. You can just go and do stuff and just sort of think out of the box a bit and just do cool setups. Like, try and find one that we've shot in studio that doesn't look like it's in studio. But you can just build stuff, you know, if you're doing off-model stuff, go to B&Q, Homebase, Wix, or whatever. Go buy a metre square sheet of a printed material, marble, whatever, a nice piece of textured wood. I don't know, not MDF. Textured wood, nice wood, not chipboard, and just shoot against that. There's no reason, like, it looks good. Hang on. The Social is probably a better instance. Oh. Everything on Instagram is shot in-house, off-model, just clever bit of retouching. That's on a hanger. That's just lifted up by some metal, like they've just put it on top of some cubes, a bit of fish wire, a stand, nice lighting. I'm trying to find an example of where we've used a textured. We do setups like this in the corner of a room. We bought laminated flooring, skirting boards, and you can build a lifestyle setup. Like, you can do it. It's not overly crazy, and sometimes they just need to simplify the sort of ideas, I guess. What stuff are you guys into? Everything? Okay. Where are you looking for inspiration?
Well, at the moment I'm more focusing on photography, so I use a lot of like online stuff and social media to kind of find ideas.
And then when you found it, are you just saving it, printing it out? So if you see something, you're like, right, this looks really cool. Do you want to try and recreate it yourself or just use it as a bit? Are you always looking at fashion photography?
Not always, no.
Because it's always good to look at other things. TV, film, books, comics. Go to an art exhibition, get the megabus to London, get there for 7 a.m, go to the Starbucks across the corner, charge your phone, and then go into the McDonald's, get food. You can brush your teeth in the Victoria toilet, and then just go and spend a day at Tate Britain, Tate Modern, go to Whitechapel, you know, see if there's a sample sale on in like Truman Brewery, and then just get the 11:30 coach back. Like, you just spent an entire day getting sort of inspiration from all sorts of things that aren't just a fashion magazine or a fashion Instagram. Like, that's the ease. You look at album covers, music videos, magazine covers, you can guarantee they have pulled reference from art. Like, they've got an art historian, or not, well, a good art director probably comes from that background, and they're looking, their inspiration hasn't come from some Kenneth Capello photo, it's come from some mad crazy painting, and that's where they're pulling the inspiration from. You can look at any major sort of cover music video and there is references galore. Samu Turo on Instagram is one of the best people to give you a breakdown into trends, music videos, all sorts. He used to work at WGSN, I think, could be wrong, or maybe Vez Dodge Stories, I'm not sure that's how you pronounce it, but now he just runs his Instagram account and just does loads of breakdowns of how things was made. So you have your standard stores, you have, you know, Supreme, Palace, End, Stussy, Good Hood, they're east, but so in Soho, where's Fashion Week this year?
It's all quite disparate.
Because it used to be at Brewer Street car park for 1 year, didn't it? And then it went to Truman Brewery, everywhere. Right. So Soho, you've got to go to the Woodward store, the Stussy store, the Palace store, Our Legacy. I think there's a couple of APC stores around there. Go to End. If there's a good in-store installation, it's really good to see actually at End. They're good for that. The architecture of the store is really good. I know it sounds lame and it sounds like I'm really pushing them, but they've normally got some sort of in-store activation going on that's really cool. And then if you go east, you got Good Hood, 194 Local. So if you're into like vintage streetwear, graphic t-shirts, handmade sort of bits, 194 Local is really good. SNS on Shoreditch High Street. See whatever sample sales going on. There will be one going on. I think Molly Goddard on this Saturday and Sunday. There was Mr. last weekend. There's normally like at least one sample sale going on around Truman Brewery. Selfridges, Machine A, 18 Montrose, I think they're up at Coles Drop Yard now. But you've got Outsiders store in Coles Drop Yard's really good. For sort of anyone that's into sort of like Gorpcore stuff. You can go to Harrods and Harvey Nicks if you're into that sort of stuff. But go to Dover Street and go on every single floor. Go to the bottom and work your way up. And then I think the cafe's at the top. Finish there. But yeah, you'll notice it's like a gallery in itself. The staff in there can be a bit weird, just ignore them. But there's like so much cool stuff in there, and you might not even heard of some of the brands. The basement's actually the best, I think, because if a brand ends up in Dover Street, End are going to try and buy it in the next season. You know, Dover Street are the sort of the tastemaker of the retail world.
So like it's quite funny, we've worked with Stylist for a couple of years and they were saying that first of all it's seen in Dover Street, and then if it comes through at End, they're keeping an eye on it, and then there might be a point where they can involved, but they're watching that same arc that you were talking about.
It's the exact same of how trends work. You've got your early adopters, your innovators or whatever, and that's the exact same sense in a retail space and how brands are going to work. Like Dover Street, their buyers know their stuff, the same as Good Hood. The two people that run Good Hood know their brand so well, and if they're in those stores first, you can guarantee within a season, 2 seasons, that brand is just going to go up and then it's going to drop off probably. But they're going to get to that. They're going to be in every store you can get, but that's purely because they've gone in places like Dover Street and Good Hood, and they've managed to pick it up first. Like some of the t-shirt brands that Good Hood or Dover Street get in, you won't pay attention to them when you go in there. in a year's time, that brand is going to be everywhere. I can guarantee it. Like, Supreme have got a store in there now upstairs, because why not? Stussy are in there, Palace are in there. You know, those, Supreme not so much, but Palace was just some guy in South Bank selling t-shirts, and now look at it. Stussy, well, it's been around for years, obviously, but Goodhood and Dover Street, they're just always there. They're the stores to go to. And then if you go to Paris, can't go to Colette anymore, but Broken Arm, that's still around, isn't it? That's a great store. That's the first place I ever saw Gosha Rubczynski. Obviously, it's a bit dodgy now, but I remember when I saw it at that time, I was like, wow, this is so cool. And then, yeah, everywhere. I was going to buy the t-shirt, yeah, but I got scared. And then Ali was trying to convince me to buy it. She was like, buy it, just buy it, just buy it. But nah, I was too broke. Wasn't quite splashing the cash like Penny. Yeah. Yes, I do remember them. The Rick Owens ones. Yeah, that was a bad point in my life. Great designer, but not for me. But yeah, just go to stores, and like, don't be scared to speak to the staff. I know it can be daunting going into a store and there's like somebody there that looks really cool. Go and speak to them. They probably love the brands. They'll know the coolest places to eat, the coolest places to drink, the best exhibitions, the most upcoming artists, like people that work in the stores, and those cool stores especially, they'll be part of the community that is feeding into those stores. Like, a guy that works in Stussy is going to know the next big singer, but they're going to know the best place to eat that you're going to see all over TikTok in 6 months' time. And they know the best pubs and the people. Like, just talk to the staff. Or if you ever move to a new city and there's a shop you like, talk to the people in the shop, because they know all the best spots. And then you just see that sort of atmosphere around. I say that, I get scared to talk to people in the shop sometimes, but it's good. And then it's like, oh yeah, I like your trainers. That's a good way to start a conversation and get talking about, oh yeah, have you seen these that have come in? Because they just want to talk about product. Like, everyone just loves the product.
What are your most used bits in your styling kit?
So I will use bulldog clips all the time. A lint roller, always. Always now use disposable underwear, face masks, hand sanitizer. But in terms of stuff, so I'll just go through stuff that I carry. That's probably an easier way. Tape, double-sided, Hollywood tape as well, nipple covers, clips, an unpicker, a tape measure, Wonder Web, shoelaces black and white, socks black and white, wet wipes always, masking tape, scissors, a needle and thread, a steamer, and then garment bags. That's pretty much the foundations, I would say, of it. And then I've got a desk at work that's full of all that. Slippers. Always take slippers or slides to a shoot, because if you're in a rented studio, you don't want to be walking all over a Colorama or a freshly painted Cove. Take slides, take them on and off. Do not wear lace trainers to a shoot if you can avoid it, because it's just a pain in the arse taking shoes on and off. Or you can get foot covers, but even then, they're not so much of a thing. Slippers for a model are always really useful, especially in like an in-house studio. And then, so at end, we have a wardrobe that we use, and the things that I use the most in that will be a baggy pair of jeans, a white vest, like tank top, gold earrings. But I've got hundreds of those things. There is hundreds of pairs of jeans, there's hundreds of pairs of sweatpants, and it's just great because you can just pull it all the time. But if you buy stuff, and if you're into styling, buy stuff and you don't want to return it, keep it in a box or a bag. I used to have like an IKEA bag just full of stuff that I bought from shoots, and I just use them again, because you can find a different way to use things, and then you end up building up that kit bag, like hundreds of pairs of socks. Like, I don't know, maybe you bought some random pair of like neon yellow socks for whatever reason. Maybe you're doing, I don't know, like a highlighter inspired shoot. You might use them a year down the line, and then over time you just build up wardrobes. You know, the best stylists will have studio spaces, and they will just have boxes filled with gloves, and there's just hundreds of pairs of gloves, socks, over the knee socks, tights, pants. Like when I was at Dazed, get a message like, "Hi Mikey, can you pull all the knitted socks?" I was like, what the fuck? Pulled out the box, opened it up, I was like, great. So I'm separating socks, it's like 7:30 at night. My last train's at 10:30, I'm like, oh, I'm not getting anywhere soon. Just laying out different knitted socks. Take a picture of them. Cool, can you now just give us all the cream coloured knitted socks? So like to keep stuff and you can just build it into a kit box, basically is what I'm saying. If you're building outfits and you don't know how it's going to look, just put it on yourself. Look in the mirror, see if it works. Right. Or if you put it on someone else, fine. But I'll try outfits on that I'm styling sometimes, see how it fits, just get an idea of it. And if not, you just clip it, alter it, take it up. Whoever your model is and the trousers don't fit them, clip them and just make it look nice. You know, no one knows what's behind the back. ASOS, really bad at retouching out clips, but it just shows you how much they used. Like sometimes we will clip the absolute hell out of stuff. Cheers.